Welcome to our reflection for Sunday, the 5th of July, a day that is going to go down in history. It's our Resurrection Day. We will celebrate Easter, a full 13 weeks, a full quarter of the year after we would have done that normally. A day of joyful return, not exactly from the dead, but from a long hibernation, a long sleep, a long exile. During that time, most of us have found other ways to worship. We've listened to services on the radio or watched them on the TV. We've used printed service orders and Bible readings at home. Some of us have watched talks and services on YouTube or Facebook, or on church's own live streaming platforms. Some of us have found this quite difficult. Others have found it quite good, new riches to explore. But now we can return to worship in our churches. And it's worth asking at this point, why? Why bother getting up and dressed? Why bother going out in the cold and wet? Why bother travelling to a rather odd building to be with some rather odd people when we could just as well worship, as the adverts say, in the comfort of your own home, where I don't have to go on any rotas, don't have to put any money in the collection, and I certainly don't have to talk to people who aren't like me, where it's just God and me. Well, I can understand that feeling, especially after 13 weeks of getting used to not coming to church, perhaps for the first time in our lives, some of us. But let me try to persuade you to come back, if you possibly can. I realise that there are some who can't come back due to illness or disability. And we want you folk to know that you are still part of our fellowship now that we are back in church, just as you were when we were in lockdown. But if I can come to church, then why should I? Firstly, because being a Christian is a relationship, yes, between God and an individual, but also between those individuals who he calls. In the words of St. John in his first letter, chapter 4, verse 20, anyone who does not love his brother who he has seen cannot love God who he has not seen. These two loves go together. To learn to love God, we have to learn to love his people. You cannot do that by watching a live stream service, however uplifting and creative it might be. Second reason for coming back to church is this. It's because God the Holy Spirit gives each one of us gifts that help each other to grow in our faith. St. Paul in his first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 12, verse 7 says, to each one is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good, or in other translations, for the good of everyone. In other words, we need each other. Your gift helps me, and my gift helps you. If you or I stay at home with our slippers on a Sunday morning, both of us lose out. We need to come together to give and to receive. Third reason why you should come to church, and this I think is most important actually. Going to church reminds us that God's love is for everyone. And at church we will meet people who are very different to us. different education, different colour, different physical abilities, different ages, different emotional makeup. The list goes on. People who can sing in tune and people who can't. The church is one of the only places you can go where such a variety of people will gather. And that is God's plan. I heard of some research recently which said that when people go online, they tend to spend most of their time speaking to and listening to people who are just like them. The church is the complete opposite to that. God calls you and me to church and says, surprise, surprise, look who else I've invited. Go and talk to them. You cannot do that at home. All of this is summed up in the great sacrament of unity, as the hymn puts it, Holy Communion. Now, I have been permitted by the bishop to take Holy Communion during the lockdown, but I have refrained from doing so because I wanted to share your deprivation of that sacrament and also to wait to share the feast with you again when we were finally allowed to do so. And that day has come. In Holy Communion, we see the depths of God's love. He gives himself to feed us. He gives himself on the cross, and he was showing that love to the disciples too when he washed their feet and when he said to them, "This is my body broken for you." To Jesus, love for God and for God's people is the same thing. In Holy Communion also we give and we receive. We offer up the bread and the wine, and we ask that God receive our offering and that he transform it so that through it we can receive his grace once again. And that is the pattern for the use of all the gifts that he gives to us. We offer them and we receive. And in Holy Communion we kneel or we stand perhaps together, keeping social distance, of course, at the moment. But whoever we are, rich or poor, well or sick, black or white, male or female, old or young, we stand together and we receive together as equals, remembering the words of the service. Though we are many, we are one body because we all share in the one bread. So, July the 5th, public worship, Easter Day, Holy Communion. Be there.